Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. My name is Susan Moore. I'm the Community Engagement Manager at IIBA, and a warm welcome to all of you everywhere in the world. We're excited that you're joining us today. We've been celebrating Women's History Month this month, and we have got Dr. Amelia Reigstad. She not only writes and speaks, but this is a particular topic that she is interested in, and maybe she'll even tell you about the upcoming book she's got on this topic. Um, so a couple of quick housekeeping notes. We are recording today's session. You will get a link to the recording and a handout that Amelia has for you in about 24 hours. And then later on, I think next week, you'll actually get some additional resources on this topic through an email. We love it when you use chat. So please keep using chat, letting us, you can talk to us, you can talk to each other. If you have questions, we're going to make time for questions at the end. You can use the Q&A box for that. And Amelia can see your reactions. So when you use the reactions icon, she can see it, and it just lets us know that something she said has really impacted you. So please use that. All right, let me tell you a bit about Amelia. She is a passionate change agent. She's a speaker and facilitator with a passion and love for knowledge. Communications really is like her thing. You're a professor. You were a professor of communications before moving into communication consulting. So we're super excited to have her here. Um, let's see. She's got a book coming up, but she is also a facilitator, as well as a ton of other things. You can find out more about her at ameliareigstad.com. I'm sure I'm leaving out some really important things, Amelia, but I'm just going to turn it over to you.
That's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Susan. I appreciate it. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our time here together. Really excited to be celebrating Women's History Month with you. And we're going to be chatting about navigating perfectionism for professional women. Now, I know that we have some men on the call too, so I want to say a special welcome to you. It is so important for women to have male allies. So thank you for joining us today. So Susan had mentioned a little bit about me. So I am Dr. Amelia Reigstad. I truly do have that passion and love for knowledge. And that's demonstrated through 20 plus years of communication experience, working in education, and then really spending my time training and developing organizations to lead and to communicate more effectively in the workplace. I am also the founder of the Women Empowerment Series, and this is a cohort-based program that encourages and inspires women to use their voice to initiate change. I'm an author. I'll tell you a little bit more about the book that I have coming out here shortly. I'm an avid coffee drinker and a yogi. So as I had mentioned, before we get started, I really want to welcome you all and wish you a very happy Women's History Month. And then, of course, earlier in the month, International Women's Day. Women have come so far in so many different ways. And we want to congratulate one another for that. But we have some ways to go. There's some certain things that as a general population, that I hope things change, as we continue to make our mark. So as I go through our time here together today, I would really encourage you to think about how can you use your voice to initiate change? And in whatever capacity, whatever way, whatever meaning that resonates with you. So happy Women's History Month. This is what we're going to be chatting about today. Right, so what exactly is perfectionism? And where does it come from? We'll delve into the differences between excellence and perfectionism, and then also talk about kind of the association between perfectionism and analysis paralysis, which I'm sure many of you on the call are familiar with. I'll offer you some strategies to navigate the path of perfection and really to claim your identity of who are you. And then I'll leave you with some key takeaways and some next steps. And then with some time remaining, we will get into some Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started. right? What exactly is perfectionism, right? And where does it come from? So research will tell us that it's a personality trait. Okay? It's characterized by high expectations, right? High standards, and that it's primarily driven by internal pressures. Now, I always like to poke holes in conversations, and you'll maybe see me doing that throughout our time here together today. I also argue, though, that it stems from childhood experiences, right? Society, right? The pressures that women feel to be perfect and based on those societal expectations. Patriarchy, right? Women and men were still not equal, right? And that's a factual statement, right? We know that that exists. So there's patriarchy, there's patriarchal pressures that, women fall under for this need to feel perfect. Maybe our friends, our families, right? People that are close to us, right? That makes us feel like we have to be a certain way. Okay? And then, of course, ourselves, right? Those internal pressures that we put on ourselves to be perfect. So my perfectionism story that I want to share a little bit with you, this kind of started my journey as an author and looking at kind of the different roles that women play, right? And then the societal and the internal and the patriarchal pressures that women feel to be perfect in all these different areas of our life. So for me, I always felt, or I always labeled myself as the perfect daughter, right? Not that I'm perfect by any means at all. And what I've come to now realize as I've delved more into research and writing my book is that the pressure that I feel really comes from high expectations that I put on myself and the fact that I'm high achieving. Okay? And we'll talk a little bit again about those differences between excellence and perfectionism here in a moment. But I want to share with you just a really short paragraph from my upcoming book that's hopefully coming out this fall, because I feel it really sets the framework for perfectionism and then what I'm going to be sharing with you here throughout our time together. So here we go. This is a little bit from the first chapter of the book, rather. So pressure on females to succeed starts incredibly early in life. And I know I'm not alone in that hypothesis. As women, we know based on societal and patriarchal pressure, there must also be a social component that plays a significant role in women feeling the need to be perfect. It causes us to self-regulate and internalize, and before we know it, our identities are long gone before we even get to know ourselves. There is an expectation that we follow a certain path: college, career, marriage, kids, and usually in that order. Everything is laid out for us, but unfortunately, the best laid plans don't grant us space to figure out who the heck we are. Our identities are lost in what society expects of us. And if we deviate from the path and create an opening for discovering who exactly we are, we're considered rebellious. Instead of feeling pressure to be perfect and follow the path, I want women to shift their perspective and feel confident and feel empowered with the decisions they make in their lives and know that they have impact in the world. This begins with letting go of the ridiculous amount of pressure that society, patriarchy, family, friends, and yes, even ourselves put on us to succeed. So I want you to think about that short paragraph that really prefaces kind of my thought process on perfectionism and how women tend to fall into these certain areas in their life. So think about that, see if it resonates with you as we go through our webinar here today. So go ahead and open up the chat, right? So we've got well over 200 folks on the line, so I'm not going to be able to read everything that pops up. But if you do feel comfortable in sharing, based on what I just shared with you, think about the roles that you play in your life, both personally and professionally. Where do you feel the pressure to be perfect? And I'll give you just a moment to think about that, and I'll open up my chat box here and let some of these responses come through. Yes, okay, so right away, we've got a few of you. Motherhood. Leslie, Heidi, thank you. Yep, Jody at work, she feels the pressure to be perfect. Okay, child rearing in our jobs. Hey, Joe, thank you. Delivering consistency in work. Nancy, everywhere. Yes, Lindsay, motherhood, being a wife, as a mom. Yes, Denise, as a parent. Hey, Melissa, yes, a great point there, right? A perfect adult, right? So caring for aging parents. Yes, right? We can have that need or that feel like we have to be perfect in that space. Yeah, so having the perfect house, motherhood, communication. Ah, Danielle, yes, appearance. Hey, a homemaker. Terry, that's a great work-related one. In a new role in your career as a leader. Ah, the perfect friend, right? The perfect partner. Ah, Michelle, that's fantastic too, right? Perfect in your faith, right? Written communication, right? Okay, so many wonderful thoughts. I'm scanning through the webinar chat and I'm at 50 unread messages. So I love this. Keep it all coming. I'm never wanting to upset anyone. Letitia, that is great. The only place I don't feel the pressure is with my dog. Okay. And I love that. And you know what? I do feel pressure with my dog. He's constantly at me for bones and treats. He's sitting at my feet right now. Okay, Jamie, yes, at work, knowing and having everything the answer to all questions. Okay, Abby, emotionally, yes. Personality, careers, partners, leaders in society, right? Trying to lead by example. Okay, I love this. All right, so thank you everyone for your thoughts there. Again, I'm going to continue on, but keep those comments coming and feel free to chat with one another as we continue on. Right, so we all feel this pressure to be perfect, right? And there are some reasons why. I want to introduce you to two of my very best friends. You probably are familiar with them. We have Dr. Brene Brown and then my dear, dear friend, Oprah Winfrey. I'm going to play for you just a short 3-minute video clip that has Oprah and Dr. Brene Brown talking about perfectionism. And I want you to kind of pay attention to what Brene Brown is saying because it's a little bit different than how I approached perfectionism when I first started delving into my research. And I'd love to hear what you think about her thoughts after this. So I'll go ahead and play this short video. It's just over 3 minutes long.
Let's talk about some of the most common examples of armor. You were talking about the armor that we put on to protect ourselves.
Yeah, I think the big three are perfectionism, numbing, foreboding joy. And there's also cynicism, cool, and being critical. So let's look at them. Perfectionism. How many of you struggle with perfectionism a little bit? Okay, so my favorite story is that someone sent me an email one time that said, hey, I know you have a book on shame, not so interested in that, but if you ever write on perfectionism, I can't wait. So here's the secret. When perfectionism is driving, shame is always riding shotgun. And fear is the annoying backseat driver.
Say it again.
When perfectionism is driving, shame is always riding shotgun. We struggle with perfectionism in areas where we feel most vulnerable to shame. Does that make sense? So we're all comfortable saying, yeah, I'm a little perfectionistic, which is code for like I do things really well. But I'm not comfortable saying I have shame. But perfectionism, what is that? I call it the 20-ton shield. Here's what perfectionism really is. It's a way of thinking that says this: if I look perfect, live perfect, work perfect, I can avoid or minimize criticism, blame, and ridicule.
Whoa, that's good.
All perfectionism is the 20-ton shield that we carry around hoping that it'll keep us from being hurt. When in truth, what it does is it keeps us from being seen And so we had a great talk about
Yes.
what's the difference between perfectionism.
Yes, because somebody on my staff had the nerve to tell me that I was a perfectionist. And I absolutely denied that. And you stood by me. Thank you very much. Because I'm not a perfectionist. I'm a person who strives for excellence and requires excellence. There is a difference, is there not?
There is a difference. Here's the difference. Because sometimes I'm a healthy striver.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm a perfectionist. It depends on if I've got a worthiness crunch going on. So healthy striving is internally focused. It's I want to do this and be the best I can be. Perfectionism is not about what I want. Perfectionism is exactly what will people think.
Yes.
So how many of you have driven by what will people think? So I'll give you a great example. So while we're taping these, my son's first day at school. And so, I'll be home tomorrow. Right? It's not a big deal, but it's what will people think?
Is he in the first grade?
Second.
Second. Okay.
So he is monogrammed from toe to toe. His haircut, everything's laid out. His lunch will have some kind of vegetable fruit ratio that's perfect. Because I am struggling a little bit.
Because you're here with me and not...
And what will people think?
What will people think? They're going to think, there she is up there with Oprah.
Yeah. Talking about how to be a good parent
How
in
to
her
be a good
fancy
parent.
boots.
Yes, in her fancy boots. Yeah.
Right. But so I don't think... So the thing is, you can't ever do anything brave if you're wearing the straitjacket of what will people think.
All right. So I love kind of how she encapsulated. Whoops, bear with me here. We've got something playing. Let's see if that stops. There we go. So what I love about what they're talking about is really, trying to let go of what people think, right? So this is a pretty key statement that Dr. Brown introduces us to. When perfectionism is driving, shame is always riding shotgun, right? She continues on and then says, fear is the annoying backseat driver. So I want you to think about just what we watched and this whole idea of perfectionism equaling shame. Right, go ahead and open up your chat. What do you think about this saying? Because I'll be honest, when I first delved into, really honing in on my thoughts on perfectionism and doing some research, I wasn't naturally kind of linking it to this feeling of shame, right? Maybe failure a bit, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here shortly, but I'd love to hear your thoughts, right? Okay, so Mary, you're like, yes, shame's the killer. Yeah, doing less than what I'm capable of, right? Remember, she's talking about this 2010 shield, right? We get fearful in certain areas where we're most vulnerable. Okay, Abby, yes, you agree. Perfectionism says, what if they realize I'm not good enough? Right? I need to do more to show them I am. Okay, Melissa, you agree as well, right? Other people's perceptions are the benchmark for me. Hey, and you don't know why you care so much. Okay, Melissa, I'd love to continue that conversation with you, after our time together. Make sure to reach out on LinkedIn with me. We can do so. Kathleen, okay, you didn't link it either, right? But yes, okay, hearing it starts to make sense, right? We're fearful. Yeah, Patty, I hear you, right? You wish you knew how not to care what people think. Right? And I'm in that same boat, right? Really trying to let go of what will people think, right? I'll give you a prime example. I have been working in the communication, the leadership, education space for 20 plus years. And I've been very successful, which has been great. But I'm now at the point in my life where I really want to focus on purpose. I want to do things that are really purposeful to me and have meaning, right? Is why I'm here with you all today, highlighting Women's History Month and talking about perfectionism. I really want to open up a flower shop. Okay? A flower shop. Dr. Amelia Reigstad, Ph.D., couldn't be more educated, and I want to open up a flower shop? What will people think? right? So I hear you, right? It's challenging to let go of that, right? Yes, Sarah, imposter syndrome plays a role. We won't necessarily delve into that here today, but if anybody's interested in imposter syndrome, there's a fantastic book out there by one of my colleagues, Teresa Sandy. It's called Find Your Fierce, right? Excellent book about imposter syndrome. Yeah, how do you fear yourself from the constraints of the others? Okay, so again, some wonderful, wonderful thoughts, and I want you to keep those coming through, okay, as we continue through our time here together. So let's talk a little bit about this whole idea of excellence versus perfectionism, right? So many of you just alluded to this, and it kind of ties into what Brene Brown was saying. Perfectionism is linked to this fear of failure, right? So we have to strive so hard. We have to work so hard and be perfect in all these different areas because we don't want to fail as women. And we are so concerned with what people think. Okay, so that's perfectionism. Now, kind of flip it on its head a little bit. And I swear, this was eye-opening to me when I started to delve into the differences between excellence and perfectionism, right? When we strive for excellence, right, it's that urge, right? That urge for success. Okay? So there's nothing wrong with having high standards, right? And I have always considered myself a perfectionist. Okay? Now, after writing my book, I'm not so sure I am. Right? I'm a high achiever. Right? I have high expectations, but I wouldn't always classify myself now in everything, in every role that I play, as a perfectionist. Right? And we do need to be cognizant of the expectations that we place on ourselves, right? Because if they're unrealistic, that is going to set us up for failure because we know that we can't attain that, right? So just kind of take a look at this list between excellence and perfection, right? Confidence versus doubt, taking those risks versus fear. Okay, we're going to wrap up our time here together today talking about taking those risks. Powerful versus angry and frustrated, right? Giving versus taking, natural versus pressure. Okay. So think about, kind of where you fall. Is it a matter of being that perfectionist and all these different roles that we as women play? Or is it about excellence? Is it about having high expectations, right? Because you'll see the differences here. We also want to pay attention, right, especially to the majority of you through the association, about analysis paralysis. Because as women, okay, and maybe call it nature versus nurture, I mean, we have the tendency as women to overthink problems. And I'm sure men do this too, right? But we can really overthink a problem and hold on to that. And it makes it so much more difficult to make a decision. Right? Should I open the flower shop? Should I not? Should I keep striving to build this business? Should I open that flower shop and pick beautiful flowers? Right? So we tend to be overwhelmed. Okay? We have so many choices, too much information before we can actually commit to making that choice. Right? So when we think about perfectionism, right? That personality characteristic, it increases paralysis of cognition. It increases our action, right? Especially when faced with uncertainty, right? So for those who are on the call who are in that business analysis role, what do you think about it? Think about your specific role and pop something into the chat, right? Do you feel like there's an alignment here? Does that resonate with you? Maybe how can you get past that? What do you think? Okay, overwhelming, great description. Yes, okay, overwhelmed. Okay, Tammy says here, yes, sometimes you avoid doing things that you want. Okay, so Tammy, I'll challenge you a little bit there. What do you think that is? What are those things that you want, that you're avoiding? Okay, yes. So very many of you are feeling, overwhelmed. Hey, Abby, yes, you have to lean into the fact that you're not working in a silo and that one decision will not bring down the organization. Hey, that's an excellent point. Hey, Rochelle, overwhelmed, you result in freeze mode. Okay, especially true in spots where you feel insecure. Hey, Melissa, yes, often in times highlight problems for other people. It can get negative really fast. Okay, too much information. Have to consider past choices. Fight or flight doesn't apply to you, Sarah. Thank you. You freeze. Hey, so there's a lot that goes into, again, that, difference between perfectionism, excellence, and that analysis paralysis. Right? And Vita, yes, that fear of failure. Right? And how do we then kind of navigate through that? Right? So what do we do about it? Okay. So I want you to think about how can you really start with realistic expectations, right? So look at it from the perspective of both kind of your professional life, but also your personal life, because that all melds together when we think about women and perfectionism. So start with those realistic expectations, okay, that you set for yourself. And for the love, try to avoid focusing on those expectations that other people have of you, right? My book delves so much into the societal and patriarchal pressures that women experience, right? And we want to make sure that we are really using our voice, right? And putting our foot down to stop those conversations, okay? Silence that inner critic. Right? Try to, and I know it's really challenging to do, but try to silence that little voice in your head that says, I'm not good enough. Right? What are people going to think? Right? Try, as difficult as it can be at times, to move forward. Right? Focus in on the positives. Hey, ask for help. Right? Who is it in your network, personally, professionally, that you can rely on? Right? Ask for help. Hey, ask for questions, or ask for answers to questions, rather. And know that it is okay, and even allow yourself to make mistakes. That then leads to learning how we can receive criticism. How can we process feedback in a really healthy manner? Most of all, okay, I want you to be authentic. Okay, now, this phrase is something that is incredibly important to me. I have it tattooed on my arm. Right? Be fearlessly authentic, bravely be you. If you have a piece of paper and a pen, pencil in front of you, I want you to write this down. Okay? Be fearlessly authentic, bravely be you. Right? What resonates when you hear this phrase? Go ahead and pop something into the chat for me. What are your thoughts about authenticity? Being fearlessly authentic, bravely be you. Yeah, Michelle, okay. You learned all this in the last few years. Okay, something that, yeah, we wish that we talked about early on in our life. Hey, Denise, thank you. Being yourself. Marie, I love that. Yes, there is only one of you, right? To be confidence. Yeah, Mary, learning to love you in your 50s, right? Kudos to you. That's fantastic. Marcy, being grateful, right? Your parents instilled that in you. Not comparing, right? Vulnerable. Stop apologizing for things you can't control. Yes, as women, we are cursed with over apologizing, right? Apologizing is what is called a conversation ritual, right? And we have the tendency to over apologize as women, right? But we tend to do that as a transition in a conversation. Okay, so yes, trying to stop apologizing, for things that you can't control, but also things that you don't need to be apologizing for. Right? Abby, what does me even mean right now? Hey, I'd love to explore that with you after the fact today. Yes, acceptance, being courageous. Stephanie, okay, staying true to yourself, not being ashamed, don't overthink, being confident. Janine, I love that one. Being accepting of others' flaws allowed you to be confident in who you truly are. Hey. Yes, and Terry, isn't that the truth? Being yourself outside of your roles, right? Outside of your roles as being a mom, a wife, a grandma, a daughter. Michelle, stop comparing yourself. I love that. Okay, Sandra, comes a bit easier as we get older. Yes, celebrating uniqueness. Hey, Skylar, and I love your authenticity here. Thank you for your transparency, right? It's challenging to discover yourself, right? It's difficult when you've spent your life being what everyone else needs, wants you to be. Okay, yes. But thank you for that. You just put yourself out there and being your authentic self, and you were brave and fearless in doing so. Yeah, okay, Dan, if only all the children were taught to respect themselves and others using these principles. Yes. Acknowledging that, yeah, you don't have to be perfect. Stepping outside of your shell. Okay, I love it how you were all so communicative in the chat. It's excellent. Banishing the word should from your vocabulary. Yes. You may want to do something, but you're quickly dismissed or put back in your place. Okay, that's challenging, yes. Okay, Patty, remembering how much we learn from not being perfect. Not expecting our children to be perfect, trying to break that chain. Okay, all right, so when we think about authenticity, yes, and keep those comments coming, that's great. I want you to hone in on, the importance of authenticity, right? And like so many things in life, if we want to improve in something, if we want to learn something new, like you're all doing here today, right? You're putting in that time to increase your knowledge on this idea of perfectionism, right? So we truly are constantly, if you think about your day to day, we're constantly invited to be who we are, right? Constantly invited, right? So it's important, even if we have a tendency to take on perfectionism characteristics or perfectionist characteristics rather, to be our true self in every possible way. But it requires vulnerability, right? Like so many of you are doing here today, which I love and appreciate. You are being vulnerable, right? You're putting yourselves out there. And sure, not everybody knows each other. We can't see faces, but you are being vulnerable and you are being your true selves and you are being authentic. And that is really, really important, right? So know yourself, know how you react in certain situations. Because when we are being our authentic selves, we can leverage our superwoman power, and we can use our voice, we can delegate, and we can say no, right? And as women, especially for those of us who feel like we have to be perfect in all these different roles, sometimes this can be really challenging to do. Okay, but there is so much power in setting boundaries and literally using our voice and saying no, right? When we set boundaries, it gives us the ability to make decisions, okay, and act on them, right? Prime example, early on in my career, I operated my own PR consultancy. I wasn't married. I didn't have any kids. I did some volunteer work, but my business was my life. And I had a tendency to work 24/7. I soon came to realize that because I did not have any boundaries with my clients, there was an expectation, right? They knew that Amelia was available at any given hour. Now, sometimes the PR industry can be like that, right? But I didn't need to be putting out fires after 5 o'clock at night or on the weekends. So I really took a step back and started setting boundaries. I decided I was not going to be available unless it was an emergency I was only available rather between 8 and 5. After that, I wouldn't respond to emails. I wasn't available. Okay, now, sometimes my work still had me, needing to put in some extra hours on the weekend, or maybe I had to work in the evenings. But did you know there's a wonderful setting in Outlook where you can actually schedule the release of your emails? So I may have worked on the weekend, but I damn well made sure that I was not hitting send for those emails until Monday morning, right? So I said, no, I'm not going to do that. It gave me the power to make those choices and that decision for myself, right? I was capable. I could stay firm with that. It gave me the confidence to communicate to my clients, actually, I'm only available between 8 and 5 unless it truly is an emergency, right? And part of that too, if you have the ability or your team members to delegate, right? Have other people help you with work, helping to set those boundaries. That's really important as well, right? I always use the example from a personal perspective is the bathrooms, the toilets, they don't care who cleans them. They just want to be cleaned. Okay? But doesn't have to be me, doesn't have to be my spouse that cleans them, right? We make our lives less complicated and tension-free by having our children clean the bathrooms, right? That's setting some boundaries, that's teaching, and that's saying, actually, no, I'm not going to do that. So go ahead and open up your chat again. Think about kind of your day-to-day role, personal or professional. What do you need help with when it comes to setting boundaries? What do you think? What do you need help with? If you think about your day-to-day role, what do you need help with? Hey, Melissa, yes, saying yes to everything, not taking on too much. Okay, Janelle, yeah, getting your kids to go to sleep on time. Hey, better at saying no, knowing your priorities, taking breaks. Yes, Amy, it is okay to ask for help. Absolutely. Okay, Abby, yes, you're not the only one that can answer questions for your kids, right? You do a lot of redirecting to your spouse to get them to realize he's able to help them. Yes, right? Saying no to people that I don't feel appreciate your time. Okay, work-life balance plays a role. Not taking on more that you can handle. Yep, Kim, and that's fair truth too. Sometimes it's easier to do something for someone than to teach them how to do it. Hey, yep, fair point. Letting go of the perfect house when guests come over. Okay, so going off of that, right, what can you say no to, right? So it's Wednesday, middle of the week, maybe a long weekend for some of you as we head into Easter, right? Think about maybe if you've got family commitments, maybe the Easter Bunny's coming. What can you say no to? Okay? I want you to step outside that perfectionism brain and pop something into the chat. What can you say no to? What can you commit to saying no to? Okay, saying no to working later. Okay, other people's expectations. Yeah, working while parents are in town, working 24/7. Right? I've said no to hosting Easter dinner. Like, how about we go out for brunch instead so I don't have to cook? Right? I said no to that, and I was completely comfortable in that response. Okay, so that's great too, Letitia. Connecting on the holiday and agreeing to see people when I need to rest instead. Yes, say no. Okay, no, I won't bring my work laptop on vacation. Good. Yes. Spending Saturday cleaning for hosting instead of resting. No, I don't have enough money to spare. Good. Okay. Right? So there are so many things that we can say no to. Right? And it can be the littlest thing, right? Sandra, yes, over decorating for the holidays. Saying no to happy hour because you want to stick to your health goals. Okay, so as things come up for you, kind of over the Easter long weekend or, moving into next week, I want you to hold on to some of the things that we've been chatting about and say no. Set those boundaries. Say no more often. Okay. So as we start to wrap up our time here together, and then we'll get into some Q&A, let's talk briefly about this fear of taking risks, right? So, and Brene Brown talks about this, like shame, guilt, fear, right? And a lot of times, this fear that we're feeling, right, it's resulting from something in the past, right? So past experiences. Okay? And then here's my favorite one, again, right? Societal expectations, right? We don't take these risks because we're fearful of what other people are going to think, right? What society tells us we should and shouldn't do. Okay? And then personal insecurities, right? Because again, we have the tendency not to take risks because we are fearful of the consequence of failure. But sometimes it's even the fear of success, right? This whole imposter syndrome idea, right? For me, well, what if my flower shop is a big success, right? Am I fearful of that, right? So for me, it's looking inwards and thinking, okay, well, what am I so scared of, right? I've done a lot of really fantastic things in my life. This may just be one more, right? So how do we then move past our fears, right? And I say again, too, kudos to all of you who are here together today to increase your knowledge and to have these conversations, because I'm such a proponent of education and putting that work in, right? If we want to do something, if we want to learn something new, we want to move past something, right? We want to put that work in to do so. So identifying our fears, right? So for me, I have started listing out, on a scrap piece of paper on my desk, what am I so fearful of? Right? How can I let go of what people think? Right? My biggest fear with stopping what I'm currently doing and opening up this flower shop is, right, what are people going to think? Amelia's got a doctorate degree in communication, right? Isn't she wasting that? Isn't she going to waste her education and all of her great experience opening up a flower shop? Right? So really hone in and identify your fears, right? What are you fearful of? And once we've done that, we can set those realistic and specific goals, right? How are we going to step outside of that fear? Okay? We're going to seek help. We're going to ask for help, right? Support, feedback from others. And then embrace potential failure. Right? Use that as a learning opportunity. Final question for you here, and then we'll get into some Q&A. Right? I want you to think about what would be possible if you let go of perfectionism and took more risks. Okay, so think about that question. What would be possible if you let go of perfectionism and took more risks? And then I want you to answer the next question and pop it into the chat for me. What's one action that you will take today to make that possibility a reality? Okay, so again, think about what would be possible if you let go of perfectionism and took more risks. And then pop into the chat, what's one action that you will take today to make that possibility a reality? And I'll give you a moment to think about that and pop something into the chat. Okay, so less stress, more achievement, saying no. You feel more relaxed. Okay. Ha, Janine, I love that. Ask this cute guy out. You go for it. Right? Letting go of control of everything, feeling more relaxed. Okay, yeah. I love that, Melissa. Time boxing your tasks. Instead of spending 3 hours on one PowerPoint, someone's going to mark up anyways. Yeah, get it done in an hour and call it a day. Great. Hey, good. New opportunities, open doors, growth beyond your wildest dream. Don't doubt yourself. Expanding horizons. Yes, Kim, less guilt. Hey, Sarah, good. And I love your transparency there. Your motto has become, do as I say, not as I do. You need to follow your own advice because you give pretty darn good advice. Okay. Do more for you, Denise. Yes, travel more. Purchases for you. Great. Stephanie, more opportunities and accepting failure to grow. Go to bed right now. It's 1 a.m., but I enjoyed this talk. Well, thank you so much. I free you to go. It's 1 a.m. Enjoy your and have a good night's sleep. Yeah, schedule cross trainings, less stress. Oh, Maria, that's a good one. Not checking my children's location. Ugh, I tend to do that too. Open up a business, right? Expanding more opportunities. Yes, being okay working on your resume and not having it perfect right away. Growth, opening up yourself. Hey, more energy to do something, Michelle. Yes, rather than overthinking it. Getting to know more people. Yeah, finding something to delegate. You don't have to control everything, Patty. That's great. Have more fun. Wilhelmina, that's lovely. Love yourself more. Right. So there are so many things that all of you can do to try to let go of those perfectionistic traits, right? To try to take more risks, right? And know too, I share all of this information with you all to kind of poke holes in these conversations and to get you thinking. No, Jody, I have money on the Vancouver Canucks winning the cup this year. I hope that they do. Right? So keep poking holes in those conversations about perfectionism and really making it a reality for you. Okay. So here are some key takeaways for you. And bear with me here 1 second. I'm going to pop this into the chat for you. So it's a takeaway document for you. And I know Susan will send this out as well, but if you want to download it now, I just popped it into the chat. All right. So the key takeaways for you that I really want you to hold on to, right, is that perfectionism, it's considered a personality trait. Okay, again, characterized by those high expectations and standards. It can come from ourselves, right? This whole idea of failure and fear and shame, okay, but it comes from so much more, right? Society, patriarchy, right? Ourselves. Okay, there is this difference between excellence and having high standards and expectations and perfectionism, right? We know analysis paralysis and that association to perfectionism exists. Hey, but how do we navigate through that? Right? We want to let go, right? Letting go of perfectionism tendencies is really key to our success and fulfillment in life, right? Let go of our fears, be authentic. Okay. And as women, delegate, right? Set those boundaries, fight the system, and say no. So everyone, thank you so much for your time. We have about 10 minutes or so for questions. Please feel free to reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn. My email address is there as well. If you're interested in my free perfectionism worksheet, or if you want to be on the pre-copy book release list, please go ahead and scan that QR code. And I send out emails once a month. And then that will give you access to the perfectionist worksheet as well. So everyone, thank you so much for your time. I hope that what I shared with you today resonated. And Susan, I will turn it back over to you.
Excellent. So there's I'll be sharing the chat log with you, Amelia,
Okay,
because there's
perfect.
tons of good stuff in here, and I know
Good.
you were getting lots of comments, so you might not have been able to keep up with them. So just a reminder, um, if you have a question, you can put that into the Q&A box. If you see a question in the Q&A box and you have the same one, you can give it an upvote. We have just one question, but actually I've got an observation. It was from a comment that somebody made in chat,
Yeah.
and it was about somebody struggling with feeling like they could be authentic at work. And the comment was, maybe your authenticity is the thing they need. And I thought,
Mm.
oh, maybe we don't even need to say maybe. Maybe your authenticity. So maybe the statement is, listen to me, keep using maybe. I feel like we need to have a discussion about this.
I
Anyway,
can help you with that, Susan,
the
but we can do that
convert,
another
right? The quote is, your authenticity is the thing that they need.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I would say too, like I know that it's authenticity is a challenging challenge, I would say, right? So I can say to you all, be fearlessly authentic, bravely be you. And you might be looking at me going, yeah, but that's easier said than done. And I fully recognize that. I fully recognize that. But just consider trying, right? What
Yes.
would be different, right, if you weren't so worried about what people think, because that does go back to what Brene Brown is talking about when she's thinking about, shame. What will people think? And I think that's the part of it that we have to let go of.
Yeah. Yeah, that somehow we think our authentic selves are, I don't know, weird or whatever. My experience has always been that when you can bring authenticity into the relationships, into any of your relationships, but particularly the professional ones, you will find that it makes trust a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
And it is reciprocated. And so you can help to bring down walls, which as a business analysis professional, because relationships are a key part of how we're going to get
Yeah.
information, that being authentic and making it a
Mm-hmm.
safe space for that is very much rewarded. So
Right. Right.
that's kind of my 2 cents for why you should just
Yeah.
give it a try. Just give it a
Right.
try.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's take some questions. We have had a
Yeah.
few. So the
Okay.
first question is from Yelena. How would you navigate perfectionism and what people think when it's instilled in your culture? And I think this is a fantastic question in cultures where women maybe are a little bit limited in
Mhm.
their, how authentic they can be.
Right. And I would say too, I mean, that's a little bit difficult or a challenging question for me to answer as well. Excuse me, as my dog barks, somebody's at the door. Of course, that's always how it works. Um, but I would say, is there a way that, you know, you can still be authentic without necessarily offending someone? Or is something on the smaller scale that you might be able to do when you're navigating kind of these perfectionist tendencies when it's instilled in your culture? Because again, a little bit challenging for me to answer when I don't know exactly kind of the tendencies of the culture, and I want to be respectful of that as well.
Yeah, and I think that shift from a perfectionist mindset to an
Mhm.
excellence mindset, are
Yeah.
there places, if you were to shift your thinking, are there places there where you could do that in a way that is in keeping with the cultural norms, but also allows you to, as a woman, to be, um, you know, uh, not so worried about what others think? Yeah, I
Mhm.
don't know, but I did
Yeah.
think that those two side by side, I thought was
Right.
a really great representation
Mhm.
for folks to take a look at. All right. Our
Definitely.
next question here is from Vidya. How do you set boundaries when you are the underdog,
Mm.
um, or for example, you need this job,
Yeah.
and you are not in a position to say no?
Okay, so and that's a great question. And I do feel again like there's gotta be a way to set boundaries. It just depends on what it is. And you can certainly, send me an email after and we can kind of navigate this a little bit further and you could provide maybe some more specific examples. But I would use again, my example of the emails, right? So, yes, you might need this job, But unless you are being paid for overtime or 24/7 hour work, or unless there is something specifically in a contract, right? You could set boundaries of not responding to emails after a certain hour, right? Because even from a legality perspective, right, there's some things there. So there's some ways to set some boundaries, right? Where maybe you actually are in the position to say no. You just don't realize it quite yet. Or there's a certain way you can kind of navigate through that.
All right. Great response. Okay, last question that we have here, but we can still take questions.
Yeah.
So this one's from Melissa. Melissa says, I feel there are so many fluffy words around women, specifically being authentic. People say it's brave and bold, etc. But they never use this kind of verbiage for men, right? We don't ever tell men, go out there and be your authentic self. I agree, Melissa. It's just what's expected. Are we creating more of a chasm with that type of verbiage?
Great question. And I'm at the point in what I do and what I'm representing. And this goes back to being my authentic self. I don't actually really care anymore about, I mean, yes, we don't use this verbiage for men. I have a tendency to think like, unfortunately, it's our reality, but I'm not really so much concerned with them unless I'm having conversations with them about allyship, right? And how we need the support of everyone in order to move women forward. So Melissa, though, I will say to you, thank you for poking holes in the conversations because that's really, really important. And I thank you for that.
And I feel like this actually, we do need to say some of these things out loud for women to hear. Because my guess would be that just culturally, we don't hear this enough said to women and girls, be authentic. And also, what does that really mean? But I think it's important that we say it out loud. And maybe really it does apply to men too, because I think there was another comment in here somewhere, I think from a man who said, yes, we share the same tendencies. So maybe there are men out there that also need to hear this about being brave and bold.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is too, we're all different, right? That's what makes the world a great place, when used appropriately, right? We all are different. We all have different thoughts, different, opinions on things. And I mean, some of the comments in the chat, from the men, right?
Yeah.
Right. This one from Robert, that word weird. I love the cliche. Everyone is someone else's weirdo, right? I love that. So I feel too, there is much more of an emphasis put on women with some of these conversations. But we own these conversations. As women, we own these conversations. And I'm not so sure there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I am personally okay with saying as Melissa says, the fluffy words, because somewhere, some woman, some person needs to hear this because it needs to be explicit that they have full permission to be that person,
right.
and to hear specific words that will help them to, if nothing else, envision what that might look like in their life.
Yeah.
So this has been a fantastic talk again, Amelia.
I'm so glad.
Yeah. So I think there's lots of comments, and we want to thank everybody because you were really getting real today. Both you, Amelia, and all of the attendees in today's session. So I hope that everyone that has joined today will take something away and incorporate this today in what you do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, one last question from Elizabeth. What's the new book's title?
Thank you, Elizabeth, for that. So it's hopefully coming out in the fall, and it's called Hello, Ms. Perfect, Navigating the Path of Perfection and Claiming Your Identity. Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you for asking.
Yes. All right. So thanks again, everyone. Thank you, Amelia, for joining us today. We'll see everyone soon. Thanks for being here.
Great. Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Susan. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, we'll talk soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.